Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. But before we do, as we stand up, I would want to remember Lawrence Smith for just a moment that he passed away. Yes. So, and he was very much a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Since 1987.
Okay, I wasn't sure of the date. Okay.
He's with us in spirit.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting teary, so we gotta go on. Let's do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So roll call.
Chair Jean Ward. Vice Chair Benz. Here. Secretary Lundy. Here. Melinda Garrett. Here. Eric Smith.
Here.
Joel King.
Can we have approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. Everybody say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anybody have any problems with the minutes from February? I looked them over, I didn't see anything.
I thought they were very well done. I'd make a motion to approve the February 13th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Somebody second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now we have the site plan application, Consumers Energy, Joseph Lawton, address 3609 Rochester Road, parcel ID 05.15.200.006, zoning M2, parcel size 1.93 acres, essential services and upgrading natural gas facilities. Do you have anything on?
I do, but maybe before I give my report, it might be beneficial for the applicant to explain what this site is and what they do at the site, and how this site functions within the.
I didn't know who went first.
Sure.
So, gentlemen, like to tell us exactly?
Okay.
Your name and so forth?
Sure. Want me to step up here?
Yeah,
Okay,
so we can hear you.
no problem. My name is Craig Johnson. I work for MTH Consultants. I'm a civil engineering consultant representing Consumers Energy. So that's a city gate station. What happens at a city gate station is transmission gas pressure is delivered into the gate station. And at the gate station, it's reduced at pressure, polarized, and then sent out to the distribution system to all the customers' houses from there. So part of this process, what Consumers is doing is upgrading the site to put new and improved equipment on it, and also replacing valving for safety purposes.
I have a question, just for curiosity. How many miles are there between these type of stations?
Depends on the area, and depends on the concentration of the users on the gas
Okay.
system. In a more urban environment, the city gate stations, the regulator stations will be in closer proximity to each other. But in a more rural area that might consist of someone like this with kind of a small town here or there, the city gate stations will typically be in or near those areas.
Okay, I'm just curious about that.
No problem.
What exactly is done there? Is there storage underneath?
No, as a part of this process, there was an underground storage tank at the facility that will be taking out. It was an odorant storage facility. Odorant is injected at these facilities because transmission gas, when it comes to higher pressure, is not odorized. In consumers will, at this station, when they lower the pressure to distribution pressure, will add that odor into it. It's that same familiar smell that we're all accustomed to, if you smell that. So that, again, the point of this station is to take that transmission pressure gas, reduce it in pressure so we can put it in pipelines and deliver it to customers' houses.
So where the gas line goes through, it's routed through there all underground, and then you inject this odorizer in it?
That's correct.
Before it goes to the residents?
Yes.
Customers?
The odorizer will be in the building itself as well, so we'll keep that equipment within the building that we're going to put on the site.
So many years ago, I remember there was above ground a pipe, and then there was another pipe that came up and it used to burn.
That was a flare. The original work that was out there was a part of production that Consumers Energy was involved with decades ago.
Right.
Those production operations have long since
I
been.
think it was winter gas originally.
So that's all gone now?
That is correct.
Equipment's gone.
Yeah, the new facilities are purely for Consumers Energy, the distribution side of the business.
So why do you need a
1680.
1680 square foot building? What is going on in there?
So that will house the equipment, the odorizer that we talked about, the tank, and some specialized equipment, including the regulators that we want to keep under a controlled environment.
So all of that's been currently in those two small buildings, so you're expanding it?
It's not within those two small buildings. Some of it is outside of those buildings, and part of enclosing it into the building now is for the protection of those facilities too.
So everything's gonna get moved?
Yes, it's a part of this project. It's a redesign of the facility to both upgrade the equipment and make it more easily accessible for workers as well.
So
And I just
unrelated-
wanted to add on to what Craig is saying. You were asking about the size of the building. One of the things he mentioned that may not pick up on is that we have an underground storage tank, this underground odorizer tank. It's going to be removed. That area will be backfilled and safely, graded over. But that piece of equipment is still necessary. That piece of equipment is going to be above ground inside the building. That odorizer tank is over 20 feet long. So we're talking fairly large equipment, but it will be covered, it will be housed, it will be in this building. And our experience has shown us over the years that having that tank above ground is actually safer for the public in terms of if there's a leak or if there's anything going wrong with it. If it's below ground, then obviously that's a bigger problem than if it's above ground. So we'll have that equipment in an area that's more easily monitored. Along with the other equipment, we have precautions. We're taking measures in place to safely monitor that equipment, much better than we had done in the past. And so having all of that in the building gives us easy access and easy ability to monitor that, and which is also why it's going to be fairly large. As you mentioned, it's like 40 feet long or whatever. It's going to house the building. It's going to house the odorant. It's going to house the regulator stands and some of the monitoring equipment.
So do you have like a third-party engineer that monitors this site as it's being reconstructed?
So not a third, yes, we have a third-party engineering that will help with environmental assessments and so forth, but we have in place an operations team that's part of their duty is to do maintenance, to do monitoring the equipment and going out and doing checks on a regular basis.
I meant during construction, during the
Oh, yeah.
renovation.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Construction manager.
Yeah.
So there's an engineer that's a third party beyond consumers or the contractor that's actually looking at this? I'm just wondering
That's NTH's here.
that's you?
Mm-hmm.
You're the engineer, okay.
Yes, yeah, and also Consumers has an on-site construction manager during the construction process where they monitor it as well.
I would expect them to. I just wondered about engineering reviews on all of this stuff being connected and.
Sure.
Mhm.
This isn't related, but there's an adjacent parcel, so there's a parcel where this 006 where the work is being done. Outside of that is a larger parcel that's also owned by Consumers, and there's two rusty metal buildings on it. Do you know what that's for?
So those were originally part of the production facilities that were out there. This project doesn't incorporate anything with those.
I'm just wondering if there's any plans to update those, because they look pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm not aware of those. My involvement was just purely the city gate redesign.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. Years back, and this probably goes back decades too. I've been out here a long time. We used to get an odor when you drive by that station, like 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, is that something we can expect again, or is that something you monitor? Is that normal?
That, for the type of operation 25 or 30 years ago, that would have been normal.
Okay.
I'm a geological engineer, petroleum engineer by trade, and so the processing that would have occurred at that facility, the natural oil and gas, the hydrocarbons that would have been taken out of the ground and processed through that facility, sometimes you have those aromatics that are produced as a part of that operation, and hence the flare and everything being flared off. The difference with this is purely a transmission to distribution city gate.
Okay.
So they're adding a little bit of that odorant, so if there would be a leak, we smell it. We have that customary. But really, a good thing about the upgrade is that, as Khalil mentioned with that building, is with the odorizer and the odorizer tank within that building also has a carbon filtration system. So even when they come in there and they positively fill that tank, all of that smell is filtered before it ever can even get outside.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How often would someone be there to maintain it or to have to fill the tanks?
The fill the tanks quite infrequently. It's a decent sized tank there for sure. Again, depending on the size of the station, people are coming in weekly to do common checks on some of the other equipment. It depends on what, as Khalil mentioned, there's an O&M workforce that Consumers has that will check in on the site, but it's not routinely monitored.
I got one more that just came to
Sure.
mind. We got a letter from the fire department, signing off on the installation and all that. But the question I have, is there a disaster plan? I know you're upgrading and all that. In case there's a disaster, explosion, whatever, is there a plan in place?
Yeah, it is standard protocol for our operations team to have an emergency response plan for every facility.
Okay,
And so once this facility is complete, the operations team and the engineering will get together and we'll come up with a document specific to that site. It'll, notify, what to do in the event of emergency, who to contact, and all that, emergency processes and what needs to be done in the event that we need to isolate the facility.
So
But
that's
that'll all
after
be-
it's built.
I'm sorry?
That's after it's completed.
Yes.
There is an existing plan right now for
Yeah.
the facility as it exists, but
Right.
yeah, so, and that's why I said, I know the fire department signed off on this. But, I'm talking about, kind of, once it's operational.
Yeah.
And that would be something you work out with our local fire department.
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. They have to be part of that emergency
They have to be part
response.
of that, yeah.
So, yes.
absolutely, yeah. Okay,
Is there any remote monitoring, security cameras, cameras inside the building?
inside the building. So there will be remote pressure monitoring on some of the pressure equipment that's on the inside. I don't know of any.
There's no plan to install security cameras, but as Craig mentioned, we do have monitoring equipment for several pieces of equipment and processes.
I thought there would be, because what if the guy tripped and fell and hit his head on the tank or whatever? You had a guy laying in there.
So there isn't any kind of security system? You guys just have a gate, and is there a Knox box at the gate in case the fire department needed to get in there?
That's generally the procedure, right?
Yeah, the gate is locked and typically they have a key. We present them, that's part of that emergency response plan that I was talking about,
right.
is that we collaborate with them and make sure that they have access to it. But, they have to obviously notify us before they actually gain entrance.
Right,
And that's a safety precaution because we
okay.
gotta have people there that know what to do with the equipment.
Is there any kind of runoff that would happen that would go into the drainage system, that's what we're gonna call it, around there, like, yeah, storm drains.
Yeah, so the civil engineering set that Justin and both the engineer have commented on has a very specific plan and design in there. And we also have 2 pending permits with the Oakland County Road Commission as well for the drainage permits.
But any kind of material or anything that could like possibly run into those storm drains or?
You know, the system is designed with the building specifically to avoid that.
Okay.
So I guess, you want the questions?
Well, I can go through my review. A lot of this site is considered essential service, so section 4.05 of our ordinance precludes a lot of essential services, utilities, government services from a number of traditional ordinance requirements. And in this case, certain things that would apply usually, that typically would not apply now, include parking calculations, parking lot surface. We would typically, require asphalt surface or similar hard surface. And in this case, the majority of the site was compliant with the ordinance, regardless of that section 405. However, the one thing I did want to at least ask the applicant tonight and bring up to the planning commission as far as landscaping is concerned. I know there is some undedicated right-of-way along Rochester Road where Oakland County at some point, Road Commission for Oakland County may dedicate some additional right-of-way to that site. But there's no plans at this time. But recently, Consumers was granted approval for a similar site refurbishment on Sheldon Road in Oakland Township, where and I've got the plan in front of me, they did some pretty significant landscaping along Sheldon Road. It was not the arborvitae that
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, it wasn't arborvitae that I asked for, but I know my letter says arborvitae or similar material. And so, my question would be, and I think it would still be in the best interest of the township. I know that Consumers wants to keep that site visible for public safety purposes, for security purposes. They want eyes on the site. They don't want it to be shielded. And again, I know our ordinance, section 405 under essential services, precludes us from requiring that landscaping. But again, I'm looking at a site plan that was done in Oakland Township on Sheldon Road that was prepared by Road Professional Services that has a number of low shrubs, 18 inches or less, along that frontage. And again, I think it would be in the best interest of the township to have some sort of landscaping there, something that just kind of, if they're improving the site, improve it in my eyes. And again, given that there is some undedicated right-of-way there from the Road Commission for Oakland County, there is the caveat that whatever they might plant out there would at some point have to be removed if the Road Commission dedicated that right-of-way. It essentially expanded that right-of-way, and on your site plan it shows, and I know Matt, our engineer, pointed out on his review where that potential dedicated right-of-way could extend to. It basically would be to the fence line. But until that point, based on what was approved in Oakland Township, I think it would be worthwhile for us to ask for the same type of treatment. And with that, I did recommend approval with the 3 potential conditions. Whether or not there would be any additional screening of any exterior mechanical equipment. I know there's not a lot of exterior mechanical equipment shown on the site other than the pipes that are part of the site. The inclusion of landscaping along Rochester Road, and then additional approvals being obtained from all applicable township departments, consultants, and outside agencies.
Is there anybody that comes out there and maintains the landscaping, the grass cutting on the other parcels that, is there somebody that comes out there and takes care of that?
So for this facility itself, given that everything is inside the fence is rock and gravel, it's intentionally for a couple different reasons. One, for a driving system. Secondly, for drainage. Drainage system is based off from the stormwater being filtered right through that. And also from a safety perspective, that we always try to keep anything flammable outside of the fence area. So within the fence itself, it's designed specifically not to have any vegetation. If something does happen to pop up through the rock.
Spray Roundup or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we had something that would be, would pop up, would grow in there, it would be addressed by the operations folks that Khalil mentioned.
Outside of the fence, there isn't anybody trimming down where the drainage swale is?
So probably twice a year, typically, there's someone that comes through and kind of clears and grubs most of these sites, I think generally for consumers,
Yeah.
at least in other areas I'm familiar with.
We'll have we'll hire a third-party landscaper to come in to trim if that's necessary. There's very little that's occurred in the way of like waiver growth at this site. And to Justin's point about a request for some sort of vegetation, some of the concerns there, aside from what was already stated, obviously being access to safety and obviously we don't want to provide any vegetation that could be an enhancement to anything that if things were to go awry. But I don't believe there's any water system, and there's no way to like sustain that. There's no water or anything like that to sustain any vegetation, in terms of watering that and providing a growth for vegetation. So that's another area of concern if we were to even attempt to do that. We don't really have a way to keep that water.
Like if we planted them, nobody would looking after them.
They'd be full of weeds.
Was that?
They'd be full of weeds.
Yep. So we don't want to make it look worse or anything. I mean, as it stands right now, I don't know how familiar you are with this. Well, probably familiar with the site, but there's no vegetation out there now that we plant.
That fence is not proposed to be slatted or anything, it's just an open 6-foot chain link fence.
That's correct. Yep, it's intentionally left open so that the site can be viewed.
That's Sheldon site.
Of course, that's Rochester.
What are these?
I go by to my southern, the school,
Let's see.
Stony Creek.
Juniper's 18.
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, see that this is what concerns me though, the 8-foot height, the 6-foot height.
It's just a juniper there. It's
Yours is regular.
it's a long juniper.
Okay.
So I just wasn't sure if you guys could.
But who would take care of it?
No, but it's gonna take care of it, it's gonna be worse, and especially if you're trying to cover.
So there's nothing along
This one's 2 foot, compact cranberry bush.
And it's a good idea, it'd be nice to make it.
So
look
juniper
nice.
and cranberry,
Okay.
just along there.
The trees are back here.
Correct.
Okay.
There's other trees on the south of the property, but just along the front, it's those two items.
There's something here too, right there in that section.
That's all you're asking.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that would be a non-maintenance, how would it look in a few years?
They're low maintenance bushes. The ones that they're proposing here, or that they did here, were juniper and compact cranberry. So they're just it's essentially a shrub that won't grow any higher than 2 feet.
And deer resistant, I think there's a big issue in that section right there,
Yeah,
there's lots of deer.
I know the deer dig through mine eating those berries.
sure. That I don't know. That I don't know.
We don't
I
need
just,
deer
it's,
track
like I
now.
said, You know, it's an ask the planning commission can make. Again, given that it's section 405, it's an essential service, we can't require it. But given that they've done it in other spaces in Oakland County, I thought it was at least worth bringing up for the planning commission to ask.
It's not finished yet on Sheldon Road yet, is it? I haven't been out
That I
there
don't
this
know.
semester.
That I don't know. Our engineer, Matt Hockey, the PEA, did both of those, or did that review. So he was the one that brought it to our attention that that's what was done there. And like I said, if the planning commission chooses to not ask, that's your choice, based on section 405 with the essential service clause. But however, I just, given that they did it in another community in Oakland County, I thought it was worth at least letting you guys have a discussion.
How you guys feel about it?
Well, what's the upside? Appearance?
It just gives it a little bit more refinement. You know, gives it a little bit of a,
Would it go across the entire property?
along the frontage, yes. And again, if Road Commission for Oakland County chooses to ever dedicate that right away, then it would come on.
We need to look at
Right now, again, there's no plans to dedicate that right away.
this fence in the front, the fence in the front part of the site is already higher than the road.
I think you're looking
But
at
it just kind of separates it from an industrial use that's in an area that is rural, semi-residential.
And it would infringe upon their sightline.
Correct.
Elevations to see what that would look like.
Because I know that is very important.
I would say
It's gonna
So what,
very nice.
are there any negatives?
It would get kind of scraggly looking over the years.
That's it, unmaintained. That's,
There's no, if they'd even die, you could have a section that did well and then a section that didn't take off with the planting and
I don't see any reason to put it there. I mean, you guys are cleaning up the site, the buildings are gonna look nicer, new fence. To have some scraggly bushes out front that aren't gonna be taken care of, obviously, that are probably gonna be dying.
you know,
I don't see a reason for landscaping. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to attract any deer to be stuck on that fence. Like Jenny said,
You hit a deer there.
there's a lot of deer and turkeys that get
a
hit
lot
there.
of deer, Jesus.
But what about this mechanical screening? Which equipment are you talking about? Because the whole thing sounds like a mechanical place.
so if there were exterior HVAC units or other units that would, supply power to the facility, something other than the traditional equipment that they have there for the purpose of the site, which is the gas pipes, the buildings. I just wanted to put a note that if there was going to be any additional mechanical equipment associated with the site that weren't part of the actual function of the site, find a way to screen it.
Future, in the future type of thing?
No, as they did the refurbish. I did not see any on the plan, but I always like to include the note. And it's my understanding that there will not be any additional mechanical equipment. But again, I just think it's important to,
Would that have to be worded like if there were any external?
yeah, at some point, I don't know if there's an AC unit, a cooler, a chiller, a heater, anything that's outside of,
That's all contained within?
Everything is on the site.
And if they did come back with adding any equipment, it'd be a site alteration, they come back to us, right?
right. So, no, that's a standard note that we put on a lot of our site plan reviews, just to make sure that anything that's non-essential to the site, that's additional mechanical, equipment, try to screen it as best possible. So, I guess, like you said, there's nothing proposed here, I didn't see anything on the plan, but I just wanted to reinforce it in case there may be, that it'd be screened.
Is there any sound to the equipment that's gonna be inside that building that you would hear driving by or?
Very little, yeah.
neighborhood that's,
Yeah.
pretty far away, but
Yeah, is it part of regulation? Sometimes there's some noise with the regulators themselves, but inside of a building, I don't even think you could hear it if you were walking by the site out there.
Okay.
Yeah. think probably the occasional person that would drive around to check the facility, the noise of their pickup would be about the most, and that's pretty infrequent too.
And just to be clear, in terms of sound, this facility, as Greg mentioned, is just basically reducing pressure. Excuse me, is basically regulating pressure down from transmission level to distribution pressure levels. And what that means to you as opposed to what we had there before, where there were processes going on, and there was a lot of mechanical equipment, a lot of movement and so forth. There's very little here. The only thing that really is moving are, the devices or the internals of the regulators as it's reducing gas. And so what you may hear if you were close to one is like a hissing sound, like or something to that effect. But it's a very low volume, and the fact that it's all contained in the building, and then the building is going to be, so much distance from the street, like 50 to 100 feet from the street, it's going to be really hard to detect unless you're standing there and doors are open and, it's just looking for it. It's a quiet thing, but for the most part, it's not much sound going on there. There's no mechanical movement or anything going on.
Okay. Sounds
I
like
think the old ones used to hear things.
They lived right down the street.
Yeah. So it's gonna be all contained. Any other questions? Anybody here? Okay. Would somebody like to make a proposal with number 1 and 3 included in the proposal?
I would like to make a motion to recommend the site plan approval to the Township Board, subject to PEA's conditions in their letter dated on February 19th, subject to items 1 through 6. And that would be it.
I'll second that.
Okay. We can vote on it. Any discussion further? Vote. Should we do it by roll call or just
Should be roll call.
roll call?
Eric Schnepp,
Yes.
Linda Garrett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Benz,
Yes.
Secretary Lundy, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your
Thank
information.
you.
Are you updating the whole system like statewide?
It's part of the master plan that Consumers has to upgrade all of their facilities. It's, Consumers has a risk matrix where they go around and evaluate and upgrade their equipment and systematically. I'm sure they wish they could do it all at the same time and they had all the money in the world, but obviously we all have to take a measured approach.
Okay, just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So now we have ordinance reviews and updates. We're gonna do that with just the 4 of us, or wait until ever we get?
It's more of an update at this point. I wanted to let you know that we are working on additional amendments to the ordinance. A good change would be that we're looking at eliminating the PUD section of the ordinance and then just focusing or keeping the open space section of the ordinance. We're doing a review right now, Carmen and I on our team, working with Pauline to determine if there are portions of the PUD section that we want to include in the open space chapter. We haven't made that final determination yet on what pieces, if any, or all would come over. But as we continue to focus on upgrading the ordinance and getting it up to current, that's a big piece that we're working on. I also wanted to give you a quick update. Is now a good time, Pauline, for short-term rentals? Awesome. So at the last meeting, we talked about short-term rentals and looking at options for potentially creating a short-term rental ordinance. And at that time, we also spoke about a previous piece of legislation that was on the table about 2 years ago or so that was going to mandate short-term rentals, and the terms of that mandate were not friendly to local communities. So since our last meeting, there has been introduced back into the legislation a number of House bills. There's House Bill 5438, 5437, 5439, 5440, and 5441, all around short-term rentals. All of those bills, except for 5438, pertain to how to assess and tax short-term rentals. 5438 itself sets the table for taxing and assessing short-term rentals, but on the last page, it has a couple of lines that are important for us. It says, one, that a local unit of government may enact and enforce reasonable regulations and uphold zoning decisions. It says to safeguard public health, safety, and welfare, including but not limited to fire safety standards and blight mitigation. Determine the number of units to be allowed as short-term rental by method of its choosing. So that would give us the ability to essentially say we're going to have only one short-term rental in Addison Township, or we might have 5, or we might have 10, but they leave that decision up to the community. Establish a process by which that local unit may revoke any permits under this act. But the last piece is that a local unit of government shall not enact or enforce any ordinance, rule, or regulation, including but not limited to a zoning ordinance, rule, or regulation that has the effect of totally banning or prohibiting short-term rentals.
Along somewhere.
So they're telling us that we cannot outright say no, but we have the opportunity to say where, how many, and the process for approving them and the process for revoking them. And I think the important piece of that is that we not necessarily focus so much on which zoning district they go in, but create a process for which the township publicizes that whatever number we end up choosing it to be, whether it's 1, whether it's 5, whether it's 10, whether it's 20, we publicize that there will be on this given date and time the ability for applicants to submit their application for the specific number of licenses that we're going to allow for these short-term rentals, and we are going to hold a lottery. And everybody that has their license or their application submitted by this date and time, it'll be a random draw. And if it's for example, 5 licenses and 10 applicants show up, the first 5 that get pulled that are complete, bona fide applicants will get those licenses. So that will be something that we'll want to come up with. Right now, this bill is just in the House. It hasn't been passed, but it is moving forward. There's support from the Realtors Association, there's support from the Michigan Municipal League, and last I heard, I believe there is now growing support from the Michigan Township Association.
Are they doing the backup, how to get rid of, like,
That would be up to
I
us
just
to
can see
decide.
this being a squatter get in there.
That would be us for to decide. They left that up to the local municipality.
Oh,
To the ability to determine the number of licenses, how to approve them, and how to revoke them. So
Who gets the fee for the licenses?
that will be set by the township. So they did not put anything in here that, so with marijuana, for example, the maximum fee each year is $5,000. They did not put a number in here like that for these. And again, it's not law yet. It's not, but like I said, the last time we spoke, I told you there was no bills for short-term rentals. Now there is one. It's gaining steam, and it looks like it could be passed by the end of this year.
This sounds like a basic question, but what is the definition of a short-term rental? What is the time? Is it 1 month, 3 months, 3 days? What's the definition of
Let's see if they put it in here.
in the bill. I think it's less than 30 days. I read that somewhere.
Short-term rental, no, that's short-term. Short-term rental means the rental of a single-family residence, a dwelling unit in a 1 to 4 family house, or any unit or group of units in a condominium unit for terms of not more than 30 consecutive days. It does not include the rental of a hotel, motel, hotel condominium, home, or condominium unit that is located within a resort that offers amenities such as golf, skiing, restaurant, facility, or group meeting accommodations.
So the answer is not more than 30 days,
Correct.
30 and below.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
So that's just an update, but
Okay.
I wanted to at least, I know we had a gentleman here 2 meetings ago that was asking us to look at it. Last meeting, we were authorized to start to come up with some ideas. And at the time, we had no framework. At least now we have some sort of framework to start to think about. But until the law is passed itself, it's still
Yeah, he
out
also
there.
came to the tax review board. He was wondering how that works with the taxes.
That's part of this bill too, isn't
Well, and
it?
that's it. This is a 6 bill or a 5 bill package. Only one deals with the zoning on that last 4 paragraphs. All the rest are about assessing and taxes.
And you'll keep us updated on this?
Correct, correct.
Short aside, last meeting, you were talking about the windmills and the solar things,
Yes,
that it wasn't law yet,
it goes into effect as of now.
because I had a huge
November.
argument with a couple friends. They're saying, no, it's not in effect yet, and they were saying it is, and
It's been passed, but it doesn't go into effect until November.
so it is passed,
Correct.
okay.
And there also is a ballot petition. I don't find the ballot petition language to be any better than the actual bill itself, but the law itself does not go into effect until November. There is a chance, obviously with any election, that the House, the Senate, the governor's not up for election this year, but there's a chance this year that the House and the Senate could flip. And I know a number of the Republicans are talking about if they were to get control of the House and Senate, they would repeal it altogether. Either way, that's all hypothetical until it happens. But as of now, the bill does not take effect until November.
All right, I lost that one.
I got one more question, going back to the short-term rentals. Is there anything in this proposed bill that defines how the township goes about getting into this? In other words, we have to have a public hearing? That
No.
kind of thing?
No, it's very, very vague. It essentially says that the township or the municipality has the right to enforce regulations, has the right to determine how many of these units or licenses they want to provide, provides the township the ability to determine how they want to approve these licenses, provides the township the ability to determine how they want to revoke these licenses if there are violations in any way. The only thing that it says that the township cannot do is essentially ban them. You have to allow at least one. And if you want to only allow one, that's your choice. That's the planning commission and the board's choice. You cannot be punished for that, as the law is written now.
So we'd have to have an ordinance.
Pardon me?
We'd have to have an ordinance.
Right, right. In order to have an ordinance, we have to have a public hearing, right?
No. Well,
Not?
If we were
Yes.
adopting a new ordinance, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
and it would most likely, the way it's written, again, you could pick and choose which zoning districts you wanted these to be in if you're going to allow them, but you would have 2 ordinances. There would be a general ordinance that's overseen by the board, a police powers ordinance, that would handle the the establishment of the licenses, the establishment of the procedure for approving them, the establishment of the procedure for revoking them. And then there would be the zoning, if they wanted to establish specific districts in which those were permitted.
So it wouldn't be like when we had the bread and breakfast, we did have a hearing, so the people that would be affected by the area could, like the library, you know, pros and
You
cons.
could essentially, as the law is written, or is proposed, you could make them a use by special use permit in
New territory.
specific districts. And under that case, there would be a public hearing. So not only would they need to have an application that was vetted and complete, but then would have to come before the planning commission for special land use approval for that district that it's authorized.
Right.
Okay.
Well, what comes to mind, there's been some discussion with some residents that I know around the lake where it's going to be, you know, let's face it, if you're going to have a part-time rental, it's going to be around the lake. You're not going to live out in the middle of a field somewhere.
Oh, it's beautiful out there.
And there's some, it's an emotional topic. I'll leave it at that.
No, I think at a minimum, because we have established bed and breakfast in the community that has gone through the process as the ordinance calls for, I think it would be worthwhile to at least consider doing the same for these establishments if we get to that space. Additionally, if this gets passed into law and the township establishes the license and the procedures, then you'll also have an ability to go enforce those, I guess, essentially operating vacation rental by owner or Airbnbs at this point that are operating without any sort of license or choosing to operate outside of following the licensing process, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have an ability to be able to go and shut them down, because a lot of them just say, you know what, I got this nice house, I'm gonna go ahead and rent it out. Or, you know, I'm leaving for 2 weeks, I'm gonna go ahead, and they don't even think about coming to the community. But if this gets passed and you put your licensing procedures in place, you'll have an ability to enforce that.
Is that something, I mean, we should have ready before that?
I don't think we should go there yet.
What did you say?
Have something ready before the
Oh.
bill would, if potentially the bill would pass.
Yeah, there's no immediate urgency here. If the bill were to pass, it's in favor of the community. You get to set your own rules. And it's not like the alternative energy bill where you're being told you're gonna take this and like it or not. So there's no imminent urgency. But it would be good if the bill passes to establish those, and I think it's worthwhile for us to think about it now and start to understand what sort of makes sense for the community. What would we like? And like I said, you only have to allow one.
No, one means one family or one facility?
One facility,
One facility,
One unit.
one
one
license.
unit.
One
It could
license.
have multiple,
Well, it says up
Dwellings
to
within one
4. It says up to 4. So you could have I guess, a unit that could be a quadplex or a single-family detached dwelling that's been converted to 4 apartments or 4 condos.
that's what I'm getting at.
Yes, one facility that could host up to 4 units.
So what is that considered in town here? That will help short term.
How so?
We're at,
Right, you know, going out Lakeville Road towards town, that facility there, the hotel, motel.
oh, you
Next
mean
to
the
the
old
store?
L-shaped motel?
Yeah,
Well, that is a motel.
Yeah,
But they think they run over 30 days.
oh yeah, this guy's been living there for 3 years, that's working for Carol Becker.
Well, if they decided to have one as an Airbnb, I don't know how many people would.
Well,
Well,
they would be precluded actually by the proposed law.
Yeah.
Because I'm just
they're
wondering,
already-
is that what would be classified as short-term?
That's a resort.
It's more than.
Resort, yeah, it's a resort.
We'll paint it, we'll paint it turquoise and pink.
So with that, that's all I have.
Okay.
Always.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else on review?
Yeah,
That's all I have.
good explanation.
Thank you. Future planning, what are we gonna do there?
So, at the last meeting, we asked what sort of topics you may want to have as potential training topics for the planning commission. So I would do a training for this, for you. It could be a very specific topic, special land uses, for example, or it could be a general overview of planning and zoning and the roles of the planning commission versus the roles of the township board versus the roles of the zoning board of appeals and how it all sorts of fits together. I guess the question that we posed at the last meeting is, are there any specific topics that you would really want to have some training on? And I know at the last meeting, the discussion was, we're not all here, so let's wait till
Which
everybody's
is the
here.
same
Right,
problem.
right.
Right.
I would say something that is relevant to what we're working on, something that's up and coming, like the short-term rentals. What do we need to know? Where could we improve our knowledge
Sure.
in order to get through that, that challenge, whatever.
Or land usages with
Or land,
solar.
yeah, something
Write
that,
an ordinance.
Yeah.
Now, that one requires the attorney.
yeah. Does that make sense? Something, that's fairly
Oh,
usable right away?
we could potentially have somebody new on the planning commission that's not as familiar. I think understanding how all of the township functions really good. That citizen planning is really good. If anyone has taken that class, it's an online
It's a great course.
course that, maybe some members could benefit from.
I will send you, I just did a planning commission training for the village of Fowlerville. And while they're a village, they're a little different than a township. Let me send you that, and you can share it with the planning commission.
Sure.
And let them look, it was like a 22-slide PowerPoint. And give me your feedback on that and see if that's too general or if it's, there's something within that that you would like to focus in on. We're happy to, education is key to being a good planning commissioner, as it is for me to be a good planner. I always take continuing education. So, but I think it's important that we hone in on some topics. And
Okay.
I know recently we did the special land use for the library, and I thought you raised an excellent question about the light poles and saying, can we ask for the light poles to be shorter than what they're proposing as a condition of the special land use? And my answer was that the purpose of the conditions of the special land use is to mitigate additional impacts to surrounding properties, whereas the standards for site plan approval provide a limit to which the applicant can build to. And so in this case, the applicant could build to 20 feet. And we had to allow that as a purpose, or as part of their development. So to ask for a reduction in that, we could ask for a reduction, but we couldn't make it a condition of the special land use because they're already permitted 20 feet per the ordinance under site plan. And I thought that was an excellent question. So I think if we can, find some topics like that to hone in on, we can have a really good training.
Good.
As a process of what we just did here tonight, when we pass this Wednesday, is there anything we have to sign, or is it written up like it used to be? We all had to sign it, or?
We're not doing resolutions, so the special use permit, Jennifer just signed.
This goes to the plant,
But
the board.
previously, it was done by resolutions, and you would have to sign them. There was not a resolution passed, so there's
Okay.
nothing to sign.
All right.
I think we should, again, table future planning commission
We
training
could
to be on the next
I will be there
agenda.
next time.
I'll send you this PowerPoint to take a look through. It's again, keep in mind it's for a village, and it's pretty general, but I think it might give you some ideas of some topics you might want to dive into.
Okay. With that, is there anything else in a public forum? There's nobody here. Commissioners report?
I don't have anything.
Nick, would somebody like to propose an adjournment?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second at the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank goodness.
I'm really looking to see